Hello and welcome back to my channel, and without dragging out too much, I'm here to further prove my point to why Baki the Grappler is the best bad enemy. Why is it good and bad at the same time? We're diving now into the second phase of the anime, 17 years after the first two seasons, and a lot of things has actually changed both in the manga and in the show. It has a completely different atmosphere, and honestly, you gotta love it. The Netflix show started with 5 death row and extremely dangerous inmates escaping prison in the same day. All of them heading to Tokyo with one goal in mind. They want to taste defeat. And yes, of course, they would go to Tokyo. Where else would they fucking go to taste defeat, right? They wouldn't go to China to experience the 4,000 years old Chinese martial arts. No, they'll go to Tokyo. And as soon as they get there, they begin looking for the underground fighters. And they declare war on them, telling them that they might fight at any time and anywhere without any rules. Even weapons are allowed, and even killing is allowed. You could be training, you could be asleep, you could be in class, on top of a roller coaster, inside a telephone room, and in the underground arena that is actually designed for fighting anywhere and any time. And this was actually really fun, and it was really exciting. Each one of the 5 inmates had his unique character and fighting style. One of them has a grip strength that allows him to grip on the softest walls. I mean, it's like his Hanayama but with a different flavor. Another one is so skilled that he can create a perfectly round, huge curved ball made of stone with his bare hand. Another one slaps like a woman and has poisoned hands. And this guy is 94 years old but built like an absolute monster. And then there is this dude that has sharp weapons in each of his joints and cheetah pants. And as I mentioned before, this arc introduced the use of external weapons, and in the most absurd ways possible. Knives, nunchucks, explosions, and so on. The inmates, as you could imagine, were as cheap as it could in using them. Each fight in this arc had this surprise element to it. You couldn't anticipate the result or the duration of any fight, unless one of the fighters is a punching bag, but okay. Itadaki, as a guy that loves martial arts and personally experienced multiple disciplines, has developed a great understanding of the human body, movement flow, anatomy, and posture. He also understood and grasped the ideology of most fighters, and he turned the different opinions and concepts from his own life or imagination into different characters, which is why perhaps they were all well done. He mastered the flow of movement, and it shows, as you can quite easily feel the speed and strength behind each blow in the manga. And that's another thing that the Netflix show absolutely nailed, as it mimicked the same style and showed the force and speed in the same way. And because Itadaki understood the human anatomy so well, when he decided to break its boundaries with its character, it worked like wonder. Their bodies were quite unrealistic, but it still worked very well. If you can notice in manga, for example, even in still movements, the body postures always had that feel in them. They were attractive and eye-pleasing. The body postures that he draws from time to another are pretty dope. So dope that so many people try to mimic them. The yujiro stance, the one-armed push-up, and many more. You could even find a YouTuber dedicating his own YouTube channel just to look like Yujiro Hanma. And if it makes you want to mimic it this badly, then it damn right worked. When it got to the Netflix show, it appeared that it actually finally found its balance of good and bad. A good art style, animation, direction, great characters, interesting fights and build-ups to the fights, and of course the best part of it, it's its absurdity, bizarre concepts, and surprising elements. But of course, as good as things get, the show still had its downs, and honestly, these downs cannot be ignored. In fact, some of them would definitely piss you off. Let me explain. So, the Netflix show began with a retarded way off the bat, with the 5 death row inmates all escaping prison at the same time with one goal in mind: to taste defeat. And for some reason, they all decided to go to Tokyo, and they all decided to write on walls with blood and urine. Please tell me that's urine. It's like a godly coincidence, and it's fair to assume that none of them know each other, and the only reason we accepted it is because Tokigawa himself said it was a miracle. But the thing is, the show had a lot of coincidences happening in it. Characters appearing at random places at the perfect time with no explanation whatsoever. They just happened to be there for some reason, just for the plot to unfold, or for a fight to happen, or for a conversation to happen. And it does happen a lot. not. Baki was fighting these random punching bags in the middle of the park. He toys with them, beats the shit out of them, tells them how garbage they are, but since he's not Yujiro, he couldn't actually leave. And this man Spike just so happened to be there. Maybe he saw Baki fighting against 5 people by himself, and you could say he gave him a hand. I mean, sure, he's a death row inmate, but he wouldn't let a high schooler fight against 5 armed gangsters all by himself. And let me tell you, these inmates were nasty in every single encounter. They knew it was a life or death situation in every time, and the concept of using any method to win was new to the fighters. Now, in the absence of rules, you can do anything, including kicking in the nuts. Boy, did they do it so much. Especially to Sikorsky, but since he was Russian, he was probably just fine. The point of these takes were to inflict as much damage as possible. Those shots so explosive they did come in contact. As a matter of fact, they inflicted what is supposed to be a deadly damage. And yet, they didn't quite suffer permanent damages. They also heal in a span of a couple of days, like nothing happened. For example, Baki is walking with his girlfriend, and Spike just so happens to be walking to the park at night, and he finds them. But this gangster boss just so happened to be walking there at the same time. I mean, what the fuck are you doing there at the park at night, Hanayama? Out there hiding behind a tree and jerking to them? I know that you don't have a girlfriend and you're feeling lonely, but that's too pathetic. You're a fucking fighter. Get it together, jeez, dude. Hanayama's blows were so powerful that they gave Spike a reality check and gave him a reminder of how old he is. And Spike couldn't have it, so he took multiple bullets and made him chew them. And somehow, Hanayama's eyes turned out to be completely fine. No, not damaged at all. Orochi Doppo surviving, and of course his eye turns out to be perfectly fine again. You've got to be Yujiro to give someone a permanent injury, right? There is this guy who got bitch slapped so hard by Yujiro that his jaw desolated and destroyed completely, and he survived the encounter as well. No, he also got a VIP treatment for some reason. Despite being an escaping death row inmate, the doctors were so kind they gave him a sharp hook as a replacement for his hand. The weight of the injuries and blows are so inconsistent and realistic in the show. Baki surviving a fall from 10 stories, he stands up and was able to fight against the strongest man alive. Okay. This is the same man that got injured so badly from a 30 meters fall that his inner organs were so damaged that he spit blood and failed to even speak. It's just so retarded, but just so you think that it can't get more retarded, just check out this one. Baki versus this punching bag decides to mimic his fighting style. He launched himself as fast as a fucking rapid train. I'm talking 270 kilometers per hour into that dude's fingers and struck those fingers, breaking them with his eyeballs. And yes, he turned out to be just fine. Oh my fucking god, that was just way too fucking retarded. No way that's real. Even Hanayama thought it was nuts, and he's a Baki character. The absurdity of this show is both the best cup of tea and the most annoying thing in it. Some of the things are way too absurd that they would actually insult your human intelligence. I mean, Baki is fighting against an imaginary 100-kilogram praying mantis. He exchanged blows with this praying mantis, and since this is an imaginary praying mantis, then that means that Baki is actually throwing himself at the wall so hard that he actually breaks it. Baki is using a headlock against this praying mantis in mid-air, floating in mid-air, and there is this kid and he's watching this happen and he doesn't think that it's actually odd. You know the thing I told you earlier about characters coming out of nowhere? Well, Baki and Kuzawa enjoy the comfort of their dark room, and right before he was about to hit it, this dude showed up.
Y'all fucking
Yup, wrongest man alive. Baki got so turned on and even compared sex to fighting. That means if you get tired, you basically lost to a fucking woman, and Baki couldn't have it. So he emerged victorious from the deadliest fight he's ever had in his life. This fight was so intense that my boy turned into a completely different beast. He became too powerful, too fast, and his hair began flowing in the air like he turned Super Saiyan 2 or something. And guess what? This dude that kicked his ass just a few days ago, he completely obliterated him. And you know what I told you about characters coming out of nowhere for no good reason? Yeah, this other death row inmate that kicked Baki's ass before also just so happened to be walking around as they fought, and now they teamed up against him. Baki is too much for them that he bitch slapped both of them and threw them around like they were nothing. But yeah, at least he didn't get out unscathed from this. Yanagi still managed to land some hits and got my boy poisoned by a dangerous poison that has no cure. Too dangerous that even the mighty Dr. Shinogi Koroha could not save him. Baki's body became so frail that it was only a matter of time that he gets to his demise. So he did the most logical thing that anyone would do in this situation. Participate in the Shingai tournament all the way to China that so happens to be done every 100 years. And in the first match, Baki obviously with that body got his ass kicked. But wait, the first guy he fights just so happens to be another poison user that so happens to be the only poison user that so happens to negate the incurable poison that's killing him. And I am no doctor or anything, but I'm pretty sure that getting more poison into your system just ends up killing you faster. But no, the poison negates the other poison and he instantly heals during the fight and wins the fight too with his body that is still frail somehow. There should be a limit to how absurd a coincidence can be, right? And why would you speed up the healing that much? Baki could have had a challenging fight like this, couldn't he? Anyway, each arc from this point is usually about one major enemy that Baki would fight in the last episode and a few punching bags that would either make the antagonist look good or Baki himself, and the plot usually advances into the distant fight between them and Baki. And that formula actually begins to work. It actually works very well. And the explanation mid-fights can be both good and bad. They did work in multiple fights, they give it its flavor, but for example in the pickle fight it made it drag on so long it made the fight boring. So they did work on instances but also fail in other instances. I believe you get the idea. Baki the Grappler is both entertaining and poorly written. It's enjoyable but it can also piss you off. But hey, if you love watching it, then that should be enough, right? If you're entertained by your watching, then it's just worth the time. It is good and bad and nowhere to be perfect, but it did get better with time. It was just like all of us. We start at the bottom. We may have a terrible start, but with hard dedication and believing in our abilities, we can make it. And we can get better at doing what we love. And still be fucking terrible at doing some other things. Anyway, if you want to see more videos of me talking shit about shows, tell them how garbage they are, and just